Welcome to the Wealth Embodied podcast. I'm your host, Brianna Faringer, an attorney, spiritual guide, and wealth activator. I'm here to help you align your mindset for abundance and break through any glass ceilings with money. If you're ready to embrace your highest calling, manifest with more ease, and create a life that feels lighter and more aligned, then let's dive in. Hello, welcome to the Wealth Embodied podcast. I'm your host, Brianna. Thank you so much for joining me today. So the topic I'm going to talk about today is debt. And I love talking about debt because, I don't know, I think a lot of people don't like talking about debt, which is exactly the reason I want to talk about it. And debt has a way of making people think that they need to feel a certain way about having it. And this kind of tags a little bit on the podcast episode I did last week. If you didn't listen, no bigs. But it was about how people, things, events, circumstances do not have the ability to make you feel any certain way. It's a choice, right? You have the ability to control your mindset, your feelings, your actions. And if you are feeling a certain way in response to money or debt, that is a choice. It is not a certainty. It is not something that everyone experiences. It is a choice. And you are making a choice to be stressed out about debt if you have it, right? The same way people get just stressed about money in general. But I really want to talk about debt because debt is actually no different than money, meaning the frequency of debt is not different than the frequency of having the actual money in your hand. And I'm going to talk about some practical reasons why that is, as well as, just being willing to change your perspective around debt. I don't think debt is a bad thing. I think it's a good thing, even sometimes when it's considered bad debt. And I'm going to get into what's good debt and bad debt. But there is a class of what's good debt and bad debt. And typically bad debt is things that are not building assets for you. They're not income producing. And it's a high interest rate, like a credit card. But I'm going to get more into detail in that. But I think it's worth talking about debt because debt is really just not that big of a deal. And people make it a big deal and doesn't need to be. And I've had some things happen recently where I can see that this is a really big issue in people's lives. And so I think it's worth talking about. It's not even with clients that I'm dealing with. It's with, this is a topic that has come up with friends. This is a topic I've had come up on calls that I've been on with other people. And I was observing some of kind of people's responses to this topic of debt. And it's interesting how people respond to it. Like if you had $20,000 of debt or you had $20,000 of just actual cash in your hand, the way that people perceive those two things to be completely differently, and they're not at all. So that's kind of what I want to talk about. But debt is not the villain that we think it is. It's just energy, like money. Debt is a thing. It's something that a lot of people perceive as being negative or bad in their life, but it's not. And I really want to talk about some of the reasons why, but I also want to talk about a topic around people making what I think are not great economic decisions around debt and how that really affects people. I want to just, before I get into this, I am not a financial professional. I am not giving anybody financial advice. If you are listening to this, please know I am not telling you to do or not do anything when it comes to your debt, paying it off, getting more of it, anything like that. Anything I say today is just in the hope that you change your perception around debt if it is a negative one, and that it may make you rethink how you do things in your life. And if you choose to do things differently, you should absolutely consult with a financial professional. That would not be me. That would be a financial advisor, a financial planner. If you don't know people in the industry that you'd want to talk to, please reach out to me. I'm happy to put you in touch with people that I know and trust. Excuse me, but I'm not giving you financial advice. And when I get to some of the things I'm going to talk about, you're going to see why I'm saying that. So I just want to talk about debt in general. When you think about debt, how does it make you feel? Like that's a starting point around this. When you think around debt, how does it make you feel? When you think about money that you owe, how do you feel? It's worth sitting with that and allowing yourself, excuse me, to see what comes up. How does it feel in your body? What are the thoughts that are coming up? Is it stress? Is it anxiety? Is it frustration? What is it? So for me, I used to think debt was very frustrating. I don't find it to be frustrating at all anymore. In fact, it does not bother me at all. And I don't keep credit card debt, just so y'all know. That's not something I do, but it happens. And if you have credit card debt, that's okay, right? A lot of people feel shame around having debt. They feel a lot of ways, like regret, wish that they hadn't done certain things. But it's important to realize that debt has actually served you in some way, no matter what it is. I'm sure somebody out there will come up with something that's an exception. So I'm just, right, there's an exception to every rule. But generally, debt has served you in some way. It has allowed you the ability to purchase something. It has given you an opportunity that maybe you didn't have. It allowed you to obtain something. And in the moment, usually people feel good about debt. And then as time goes on and they have to keep paying it, and the thing that they got for it has been so far gone in time, or the fun of that has worn off. Like, let's say you buy a new car and you have a loan on it. It starts to frustrate people. They get frustrated, they get mad, they get angry, they wish they didn't have this debt, blah, blah, blah. And so whoever you are, wherever you are, if you have debt and you're listening to this, how does it make you feel? If it's student loans, if it's a mortgage, if it's, credit card debt, if it's medical debt, what is it? How does it make you feel? It's worth asking those questions. And I'm just saying this because debt doesn't have to be stressful. Debt doesn't have to give you anxiety. Debt doesn't have to make you feel bad. It will only do that if you let it. So this episode is really about reframing the way you think about debt and the energy and emotion around it so that you can make more empowered strategic decisions and not fear-based ones and not anger-based ones, right? Excuse me. So I'm going to give you an example. So I was on this call a few weeks ago with a bunch of female attorneys or women in law. It could have been, some people were law students, some were maybe not practicing lawyers but had law degrees, or sorry about that, I don't know all the circumstances, but most of the women on this call were lawyers. And it was being run by people in the financial industry, 2 financial advisors, and I think a financial planner, I can't remember. And there was a woman on this call who was a lawyer, and she was talking about how bad her student loans made her feel. And I was so perplexed by it. I totally get it though, because this used to be me, but it's not anymore. I was so perplexed by it because she was so just like, I could tell it was causing her so much stress. And she even said that on the call. She's like, I have these student loans. Yes, I'm paying them off. Yes, I know they're going to be paid off. And yes, she had done planning for her future and was putting away money, and she had met with an advisor, and she knew all of the things that needed to be done. But this was really eating away at her. And I could just tell it, that in the way she was explaining it. And I felt so bad for her because, number one, that's a choice. Suffering is a choice. And that's not her fault. It's a very normal way to respond to debt, especially if you have student loans. Like lawyers, we have big student loans. And yes, I do still have student loans. We have big student loans. And by the way, I had a lot of my school paid for. I had scholarships, I had grants, but I still had to pay for living expenses. And I did my master's. I got my master's in tax law after law school. And the school I went to Georgetown, which is a very, very good school. I think they give 1 scholarship for the master's program. And we had 440 students in the master's program, not just for tax, but for all masters of law. So out of about 440 students, only 1 scholarship was given, right? So that means every single person is paying full price for that program. And yes, I had to take out loans for that. I put myself through undergrad. I put myself through law school. Every single thing I have today is because of something I have done, not because I have had parents or anybody who have paid for it for me, right? So I do still have student loans. A lot of lawyers do. People that have professional degrees do, and they're expensive, right? Going to those schools is expensive. So anyway, this woman was talking about this debt, and I could tell it was eating away at her, but all I could think of was number one, this debt allowed you to become a lawyer, right? And even if you don't want to be a lawyer, that's okay. The basis of giving loans to people is so that they can better their education and ultimately better their lives. The theory is you're going to make more money. Now, that's not always true, and I recognize that, but that's the theory. And I look at my student loans and I say, I wouldn't have the life I had today if I hadn't gotten those loans. I wouldn't be a lawyer today. Even if I wasn't practicing as a lawyer, I would say I wouldn't have gotten all the experience and the education that I have today without that. Like, to me, it was an asset, right? I view it as an asset, even though it's a debt, but it's really an asset. I created an income producing asset from that debt, and it doesn't bother me at all. It does not bother me. I don't get upset when I think about it. And so I'm on a call with a bunch of women, and I don't ever give people unsolicited advice, but I wanted to say, like, what if you could change your perception about this debt? Also, student loan debt usually doesn't have that high of an interest rate. Now, it depends on the type, it depends on the type of loans, it depends on whether you've consolidated it, it depends on a lot of things. But for the most part, student loan debt does not have high interest rates. So, when you think about it, it's like you can actually you're not always as bad off financially with loans as you think. And that's, what I want people to start thinking about is, like, if you have a debt, it was incurred because you received something for it. And so really looking at how it served you, right? Sometimes debt is actually helping us jump to the next place in life where we're supposed to be. Maybe you had to get a business loan, getting a car loan, getting any sort of loan. Like, people associate that with so much like shame, like, oh, I don't want to get a loan. Do you know how many billionaires are billionaires because they leverage debt? Elon Musk, there is so much information out there about how Elon Musk is as rich as he is because he has leveraged debt and he's leveraged assets, right? He has a lot of debt. And he probably doesn't care. You know why? Because he's using it in a way that's beneficial to him. And he doesn't probably sit around all day and stress around about having debt. Maybe he does. I doubt it. But I'm saying this because you have to look at what the debt gave you. And I know sometimes people are going to be like, well, I owe, like, if you have debt around like a housing bill or a utility bill or something, yes, that can be frustrating, but you still got something from it, right? Like, if you owe money, this is the thing that used to bother me a lot, was medical expenses. And it wasn't even about the debt. It wasn't even that they had sent me a bill that I owed. It was about me being frustrated that my body didn't feel good. It was about me being frustrated that I had chronic illnesses for so long. It was about me being frustrated by not having answers. It was by me being frustrated that I'd be like, well, if I wasn't sick, I'd have this money for all these other things. Instead of just recognizing that everything that was happening in my life was serving me. And that's what I would say about debt. Everything that's happening is serving you. Debt has served you in some way. So every time you have this like feeling of stress, anxiety, shame, frustration, whatever the kind of negative emotion is around debt, how can you reframe it to see it in a positive light? Okay, yes, I do have this credit card debt. And yes, I want to get it paid off because it's high interest. But I was able to purchase X, Y, and Z with it. Okay, and instead of making yourself feel bad about those things, just be like, I got X, Y, and Z for this. And I have the intention of getting this paid off as quickly as possible. When you reframe things into a way that shows gratitude, you recognize how it's serving you, it changes the action that you take. I guarantee you, if you shifted your belief about a debt, you would pay it off more quickly. If you wanted to do that, and if it's the right economic decision, which I'm going to get into a little bit. But I'm saying that because the mindset that you have informs the action you take. And when people are so stressed out about debt, I think they actually think it's going to encourage them to pay it off sooner or do things. It can be a motivator. There's no doubt about that. It can be a motivator. Like, some people get sick of debt and they're like, I'm going to get a side hustle and pay it off. Great. If you do that, that is amazing. And I hope that that is the effect that like stressing yourself out has on you. But for a lot of people, it doesn't. It keeps them stagnant. It keeps them paralyzed. So if you can reframe your perception of the debt and just be like, this is how it served me. I can choose to be stressed about it, or I can choose not to be. This is how it served me. I'm grateful for what it gave me, and I want to pay it off, or I have intentions to pay it off, or do X, Y, and Z. If you start to reframe it that way, I guarantee you the people, resources, and opportunities that are supportive of you getting the debt paid off quickly, if that's what you want to do, will come into your life. It will happen. If you are constantly stressed and you're like, I'm never going to pay this off, it has a deterring effect. It does not create energy. It does not create flow. It actually makes things more stagnant. So it's not going to help you get it paid off sooner. Again, if that's what you want to do. But debt doesn't have to be bad. Humans view debt as bad, right? To me, debt is evidence of abundance, not scarcity. People think, well, I had to incur that because I didn't have the money. That's okay, right? It created a scenario where you could probably feel abundant in the moment. And if you don't feel that way now, remember why you incurred the debt in the first place and what it gave you. Even if it's something that's like a medical debt or something. I keep using that because that was one of the things for me that really would bother me. And I know there are a lot of people out there that have bad circumstances and they get into debt for a lot of reasons. But I can tell you, if you start to shift how you think about it, it changes the way you deal with it. I see it all the time with clients I work with. I represent a lot of people who owe the IRS a lot of money. Where some people I work with don't owe them very much. Some people owe them millions. And honestly, the people that owe more money, they actually, it's not even because they make more money necessarily. They might have at one point in time, but I can tell you the people that do much better in dealing with the IRS are people who just don't allow themselves to get that stressed about it. Because stress isn't going to help you. It does not help you find problems. It does not help you solve it sooner. It does not make the debt go away. Worrying does not help you in the way that reframing it can. Worrying doesn't change the fact that you have the debt. So this woman who had the student loan debt, sitting and worrying about it and being pissed off every single time you have to pay it every month does nothing. What does do something is recognizing this helped me get this job I have. This helped me create the life I have today. I'm grateful I have the money to be able to pay this, and moving on. Right? Like, debt is not a bad thing. That's what I really want to impress upon people today. So what stories are you telling yourself about debt, and who taught you to feel that way? Did somebody tell you that you need to be stressed about debt? If not, that's okay. But it's worth figuring out where it came from. Because some people have this strong aversion to debt, and I actually want to tell people debt might be the very thing that makes you a millionaire. Right? If you're willing to take loans from people, if you're willing to do things that may actually set you up to get to the next level, they can be really, really great things. But the other thing I want to talk about is not just about debt in general, but I do want to talk about good debt versus bad debt. And the reason is because this is another thing I've actually had come up recently. I've had this conversation with a lot of people, friends, not clients, around people who've told me that they want to pay off their mortgages. And the reason people want to do that is because usually a mortgage is a big debt. People don't like carrying debt. They think it's a bad thing. It doesn't feel good in their body. And so they want to figure out a way to get rid of it as quickly as possible. So this is what I'll see. People will come into money, and instead of exploring ways or the best ways that they could use that, they'll pay down their mortgage, or they'll pay it towards their mortgage. Again, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm not giving you advice, but paying down your mortgage is economically not one of the smartest things to do. There's people who will disagree with me, but I'm just telling you. Interest on a mortgage rate is usually less than the amount of money that you could make in an investment, particularly in the market. The market average, if you assume a market average of somewhere between 8% and 10%, and you've got a mortgage that's 5%, why would you pay down a 5% mortgage if you could put that money in the market and make 8 to 10% on it and have way more money in the long run? A lot of people are not thinking about debt in that way and recognizing that there's some debt that you have that actually can be very beneficial to you, right? So if you have some debt, if you have debt, instead of viewing it as, oh, this makes me feel bad because it's this thing hanging over my head. If you start to view it as, okay, having a mortgage is a good thing because I have a home that I live in and that I own, and I have X amount of equity in my home. There's lots of really great things about having a mortgage, you guys. I know that the real estate market right now is very different than it has been, and interest rates have been high, but for the most part, historically, interest rates on mortgages have been lower than the amount of money you can make in the market. So if you have a mortgage and you come into money, or you're like, oh, I want to start paying extra money toward my mortgage, I would tell you, you should talk to a financial planner or an advisor and get some information about how you could actually invest that money, because you're going to have more money in the long run. If I told you that you had to forego a little bit of feeling badly in the short term to have 50,000 more dollars in the long run, I would choose having more money. But a lot of people, they're like, I want to pay this debt down. And they think they're going to feel so great when they do that, that they're willing to forego monetary gains that they could have in the long run. And it just doesn't make economic sense. Now, if that's a choice you make, that's fine. If debt is so bothersome to you and you have this belief that owning your home outright or having a lower mortgage is a better thing for you, there may be nothing I can tell you, but debt is not bad. Having a mortgage is not bad. So I really want people to start thinking about debt as not being a bad thing. And number two, if you come into money, perhaps instead of paying it towards debt, having somebody who knows help you figure out what to do with it. Don't just make decisions without knowing what to do. Some people are like, well, I don't want a financial advisor. I don't want to ask somebody. How do I find somebody that I trust? I know I've had those same questions myself, but if it's going to save you a lot of money in the long run, it's worth it. Number one, people are impatient and they're like, I just want to get this over with so I can feel better in my body in the short term. That is not a good economic decision. The more work and healing you do around having debt, the easier this becomes. I'm just telling you this. This is why the more you can be like, debt is not a big deal, and it doesn't feel heavy in your body, it doesn't feel stressful, it doesn't feel like it's weighing you down, the more intelligent decisions you can make in the long term. I guarantee you this. It helps you create and build strategies that are going to be more beneficial to you in the long run, because you're not making impulsive decisions for the sake of making yourself feel better in the short term. Please do not do that. I was just talking about this with a friend the other day who said this exact same thing, was wanting to put more money towards mortgage. To which I said, and I'm not going to tell people what to do, but I was like, well, why don't you just put that in the market? It's a higher return. And the response was, well, yeah, I know. It's just like, it feels good to pay off debt. 100% it feels good to pay off debt. But if you can just get used to having debt and reframe it so that it doesn't feel badly and you don't have this really negative perception about it, and you have things set up in a way where, yeah, if you needed to pay the debt, you could. So for example, if you started putting money in an investment account today, instead of paying off a debt, if you got into a bind, you could just pull the money out of that account and pay the debt off. Now, a lot of people would say that's not a great deal, because when you're putting money into the market, it's, the theory is you're going to be putting it there for the long run, and you're going to be, dealing with ups and downs, right? So if you take the money out during a down market, then you may have less, but that's going to happen. That may happen no matter what. The other thing is nowadays there's a lot of people who have when people got their mortgages, before COVID, or if they refinanced during COVID, I know a lot of people whose mortgages, their rates are like 3%. If you put money into a high yield savings account, you can make more money than if you just paid it off, right? And high yield savings accounts have no risk. So these are just some things I want you to think about with debt. Debt is not a bad thing. Having some debt can be really great for you. And, especially if it's the kind of debt like business debt or things like that that are helping you to get yourself and your life to the next level. But like recognizing sorry. How does debt feel? How does it feel in my body? Not what my brain thinks debt is making me feel, right? What does it actually feel like in my body? When I think about this debt, where does it feel like? Do I feel it in my stomach? Do I feel it in my heart? Do I feel it in my throat? What's coming up? Close your eyes and be like, when I think about this debt, how do I feel? Do I feel like overwhelmed, frustrated, stressful, anxious? And then like just writing down all the thoughts that come up when you think about debt and figuring out ways to reframe it. Debt isn't bad, you guys. It's not the enemy. It's actually can be hugely, hugely helpful to you and impactful for you in creating the life that you want. So if you stop thinking about it as being such a bad thing, and I'm not telling you to go out and rack up a bunch of debt. What I'm telling you is if you have debt, if you're thinking about getting debt, realizing the ways that it can be beneficial to you and having plans to pay it off if you get into a bind, and having plans on what you're going to do if you come into more money. Are you going to pay that debt down? Or are you going to put it in other places? And recognizing that you have a lot of choices and that you are smarter than you think you are. You don't have to be a financial advisor to figure this stuff out, you guys. There's just a little bit of education that you can get for yourself to be like, okay, little things like, okay, if I get to the point where I have extra money, what would be the best way for me to do that? Do some research on it. Talk to a financial planner, talk to a financial advisor, ask a friend, be like, hey, what would you do? Or like, if you have a friend that you think is financially savvy or like that, has seemingly done a good job or, is like good, has done good in investing or putting things in retirement, ask them the question, just be like, hey, I have some extra money and I'm trying to figure out if I should pay this debt off or do X. What are your thoughts on it? You don't have to take their advice, by the way, but just talking about it, putting it out there, allowing yourself to shift your way around it is going to completely change the way you feel about debt. Debt is not bad. It's only bad if you think it is. So having gratitude for whatever it gave you, realizing how it served you, detaching from the shame and seeing debt as something that's helping you get to the place that you want to be, not as something that's holding you back, and reframing your thoughts around it. Like if you incurred debt because you came into a bad circumstance in your life or because you think you made bad choices, not getting caught up in that and reframing it to, I am trustworthy with money and I'm going to pay this debt off. Right? Reframing, saying the things over and over again that you want to happen instead of being focused on what you don't want to happen. If you're constantly saying, I'm never going to pay this debt off, you're probably never going to pay that debt off, or it's going to take you a long time, or it's going to feel really bad. Coming up with a plan. How will this debt support my long-term wealth creation, or how did it? Just changing the way you see it. Visualizing it as a bridge, not a burden, something that's carrying you towards expansion, even if you never perceived it that way before. You just have to really get out of this idea that things are bad or good. Nothing is bad or good unless we perceive it that way. Everything just is. And having a lot of money in your bank account is no different than having a lot of debt. They're the same thing. People just don't view it that way. They view debt as bad, money in my bank account is good. Start to view them as being the exact same thing, and it will change the way that you think about money that you owe, debts you have, liabilities that you need to pay every month, even if it's not considered a debt you carry. But it just will completely change the way you think about things. But I want to talk about that because I see people making decisions about debt based on emotion and not on long-term wealth creation. And you can have both. You can have debt and have long-term wealth creation. You can have debt and feel good about money. You can have debt and not be stressed about it. That's a choice. I will say this over and over and over again. Being stressed about money or anything else is a choice. Worrying doesn't make it go away. So, how can you change the way you feel about debt? Just really thinking about that. If you have questions about this, you're always welcome to message me. Send me a message through Instagram. Send me an email. I'm happy to help direct you to somebody. If you're like, I really want to sit down and talk with somebody about options, I can give you some names of people, but you still have to have the desire to want to figure out how to do things a little bit differently, right? Instead of being stuck in the same place. So, you don't have to feel bad about debt. You can change it. Even if you have debt for a long time, having a mortgage for 30 years is honestly, to me, I'm like, I don't even think about it. I just see it as being a good thing. So I don't know. I want people to have some just thoughts about it, is how can I change this perception of debt and seeing it as a benefit to me and not a detriment. So thank you so much for listening. I hope you have an amazing day. Bye. Hey, before you go, would you love to receive my 3-step masterclass to easily create and hold wealth for free? It's called Effortless Money, and it includes the exact framework to start attracting money effortlessly and manifesting abundance with more ease. If you want it for free, all you have to do is leave an honest review of the Wealth Embodied podcast, take a screenshot of this episode and put it in your Instagram stories and tag me at Brianna_Faringer, and we will send you the free Effortless Money Masterclass. This is how my clients have manifested a $13,000 check, a promotion resulting in a $30,000 salary increase, and significantly improved relationships. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll see you next time on the Wealth Embodied podcast.